Hey everyone, happy Monday. Hopefully, we're going to make it a happy Monday for you with today's Preparedness Pro pop in. I'm Kelleen, your Preparedness Pro. So let's get started with today. Make sure that I bring our audience from Instagram into this as well. Ta da, did it. Woohoo. Okay, so here's the deal. There has been a post going around in nearly every preparedness group I'm in about waxing cheese. And as I look at this post, I am cringing. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to adjust my camera here a little bit. Okay, there we go. I want it to stand upright like it needs to. There's so much wrong with this post. And it gives me this sense of urgency to like hurry up and fix it before it gets spread out all over the place. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. It's terrible. So I wanted to go ahead and teach you guys the essentials about waxing cheese, because cheese waxing is awesome. I mean, it's a lifesaver in my opinion, because I dream in melted cheese. So it's going to be awesome, but you've got to do it right, or you're going to be so discouraged. You're going to feel like it's not worth doing, or you're going to feel like it's a waste of money. All you're going to end up with is weeping, moldy cheese. And we don't want that. I don't want it. That's for sure. So let's go ahead and talk to you today about the right way to wax your cheese. Okie dokie. Okay. All right. So for starters, let me just show you a couple things. Oh, you know what I'm going to do first? I got something in the mail. Can you guess what might be in this box? I'm so excited because today is October 21st, and tomorrow my book comes out, my cookbook that is essentially part 2 of Neanderthals in the Kitchen. But it can stand on its own as a cookbook as well. It's just more helpful if you actually know what you're doing when you get into the cookbook. So, okay, lovely fire starter. Okay, oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. I'm so excited. Whoop, don't want to hit the dog. Okay, ta-da. This is the hard copy. Yeah, the hardback. Of course, it's got to do this so that I don't sell it to you, but isn't it beautiful? I'm so excited. I'm tickled pink. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Yeehaw! The hard copy was a pain in the yin yang to get the cover right. It kept jerking me around on the cover. So the hard copy cover is kind of like skewed a little bit to the right, whereas the paperback cover, it's right centered. So, oh well, it is what it is. But I'm just tickled pink about it. I just love it. I might do some more work on the cover of the hardback so that it's more center. But I'm excited. So anyway, that comes out tomorrow in paperback, The Magnificent Pantry, whipping up delightful dishes with shelf-stable magic. And it'll be available digital and paperback tomorrow. It will be available in hardback on the 24th. So we're pretty excited about that. Okay, let's get back to cheese. Cheese. Okay, so for starters, let me just show you a couple of, this is some wax cheese that I did. This was some Gouda. No, this was Gruyere. I took it on my Gruyere pile. I couldn't remember. So nicely waxed, nice and hard. No weeping going on. Okay, this is what I use to wax cheese with. I use this double. So this is the top. And then this is the bottom, and I fill this with water. And you're going to need a thermometer that will reach at least 225 to 240, because that's how hot you need your cheese wax. I saw somebody the other day doing it at 210 or 215. 225 to 240. It's got to be that hot. Also, you're going to have a designated cheese wax spoon, because you're just never going to get it clean after that. So this is my cheese wax spoon. And then you're also going to want your boar's hair brush, and you've got to I mean, once you have a boar's hair brush, it's going to stay your boar's hair brush for waxing cheeses. Okay, once you use it. So there's no way I'm going to get this clean anytime soon, even with hot water. I could heat up this bottom pan, and then I could stroke the boar's hair brush on the bottom of the hot pan and get some of that wax out. But that's a lot of trouble, and I'm just going to use it again, so it doesn't matter to me. And then also these are, they're really just sushi pads, but I use these to put the cheese on once I'm done waxing it, just to let it get as dry as it needs to be. So that's that. I don't know how I got that in there, but it's not going in right now. Okay, so, and then here's how I store my cheese wax container. I just put foil over the top of it, and I will undo it here so you can see. Okay, so there's my cheese wax. It's solid now, of course. You're going to need about 1 pound of cheese wax to do about 20 pounds of cheese if you're going to use the brush. If that's the way you're going to do it. But I like to dip mine, and I just use the brush to take care of parts that the dipping won't catch. So with dipping, you're going to want about 5 pounds of cheese wax. You're not going to use it all. You just need it to be that deep in order to be able to dip properly. So that's important. Don't be nervous about doing this. It works great unless you do it the wrong way, like this blankety blank post that's going around. It's flipping viral right now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much wrong. And normally I'm not the naysayer. Normally I'm like, yeah, go for it, push the envelope. But when it comes to waxing cheese, it's a lot more temperamental than people realize. So we're gonna talk about that. Okay, so those are the supplies you need. Now, there's one other thing that I didn't bring over here to my desk that you need, and it's, like the old cake, the Tupperware cake covers, that have the lid over the platter of the cake. You'll want something like that because you have to control the humidity. So unless you're going to have a whole room dedicated to a certain humidity, your cheese wax is going to be cheese waxing adventures are going to be a fiasco. So make sure that you use one of these covered. You can create a cover some other way, I'm sure. But you're going to want airspace, and you're going to want a cover so that you can put a wet sponge inside that area so that you can have 75 to 95% humidity. See what I did there? Nobody talks about the humidity that you need for cheese waxing. You need a cool, dark, humid environment for waxing cheese, okay? I mean, it's great to wax, believe me, and it tastes great. I don't mind it when it gets a little sharper with age, but it doesn't get that much sharper with age, and you are not doing it for 10 years. I'm sorry. I wish it lasted 10 years, but it does not. You're looking at about 2 to 5 years is what your wax cheese is going to be like. So you're going to want to rotate through it and not just put it down there for the mice to gnaw on for, kingdom come. Anyway, so what you'll do is you'll put your wax cheese in that little covered Tupperware container or whatever you end up using. Like I said, you want kind of a dome space. You can put them up like this. It doesn't matter if you lay them on a flat, but you don't want them touching each other. You want cool air circulating. And you will put like a wet sponge, and you'll have to keep that sponge wet. You'll put a wet sponge underneath there to create a humid environment. 75 to 95% humidity. And oh, by the way, guess how cool you want it? You want it below 70. So typically 52 to 70 degrees is how cool you want that environment. So it's going to need to go in the coolest spot of your preparedness supplies in order to do wax cheese. See, not as easy as people think it is. It's not just about buying a bunch of cheddar cheese from Sam's Club, sticking it in the wax and going, woohoo, I've got cheese now for 10 years. It's not how it works. So let's just start with the basics. So for starters, yeah, see, Crystal, you never heard that about humidity. That's because people are passing misinformation. Yuppers. For starters, you do not wax just any cheese. That Baby Bell cheese that you see and that red stuff, that is not cheese wax, folks. That's just marketing. Okay. It's a soft cheese. You do not wax soft cheeses. That you don't. You can't. Period. You don't. I can't say that enough. That's just marketing. You can only wax hard cheeses. So Parmesan, some Swisses are waxable. Gruyere, Gouda, Asiago. Those are your hard cheeses. If you push on it and you can see any give, it's too hard. I don't need you to measure the moisture account, but just do the thumb push, and that's it. Ugh, I said that wrong. If you push on it and you can see a thumbprint, it's too soft. You cannot wax it. You can only wax hard cheeses. I know when I go to the deli section of my grocery store, they have this ginormous wheel of Parmesan cheese. It's waxed. It's sitting out. I don't know if they put it in the fridge at night or what, but I think my grocery store is open all the time. But it's completely encased in wax, and it's for sale. Don't think I'm not tempted. But that's a hard cheese. That's Parmesan. So you can wax that. But you cannot wax soft cheeses. Cheddar cheese, it's too soft to wax. I'm sorry. Now, maybe if you let it dry out and weep and lose all of its moisture, then it's going to be really sharp. It'll be a lot harder. Then you can pat it with vinegar. Like I take a paper towel before I do all my cheeses, and I pat it first all the way around with vinegar to make sure I'm not encasing any bacteria in there. But I also let my cheeses weep a little bit, even the hard cheeses. I let them weep a little bit for usually about a day before I wax them in room temperature. Cool room temperature, but in room temperature nonetheless. So that's rule number one, hard cheeses. Rule number two is how hot your wax has to be, between 225 and 240 degrees, not a bit less. So sometimes, for some reason, my stove does not get my cheese wax that hot when I'm on the double boiler. So I'll just take the top out and put it directly on the heat, and then I can get it up to the proper heat. But a double boiler usually works out fine for getting the heat that I need. It does take a little bit of patience getting it there, but it will eventually. Okay, the next thing, 3 coats of cheese wax, minimum. Now, the reason why I say minimum is you want 3 coats, but then you're going to end up taking your brush and you're going to look for pinpricks on the cheese, on the wax that you've done. And you're going to use your brush to fill in those pinpricks because it's the only way it will happen. It doesn't happen with the dipping. For some reason, you'll get an air pocket there or something, and it'll disperse the cheese wax. And so you won't get it there except by dipping. Another thing is with those 3 coats, you are going to want to dip it in the hot wax for 6 seconds. Then bring it out of the hot wax for 90 seconds. So it is tedious. It's not open, and there we go. Now we have cheese wax. Doesn't work that way. Okay, so you're just going to put it in for 6 seconds. Be patient. And then pull it out, and you're going to even need to be more patient. You want 90 seconds because you want that to completely cool before you put the next coat on. Again, really important. You want it to completely cool before you put the next coat on. Important. Do 3 coats and then go back with your brush. And your brush areas need 3 coats too. So if you find a pinprick, and you need to look carefully for these, but if you find a pinprick, you're going to use the brush to fill that pinprick. That's 1 coat for that pinprick. So even your pinpricks need 3 coats. Sometimes you'll find air pockets. So you're going to want to remove that wax and re-wax it there. Okay. Now the nice thing is I can cut this cheese wax off and use my Gruyere cheese, and then I would just put it back into my cheeses to be waxed. So you can use it and then re-wax it and preserve it again. Okay, the boar's hair brush is really intricate part of this process because of the bristles. They're not going to melt. There's no synthetic in them whatsoever. It's all boar's hair. So that's what you want. And I would recommend a wooden handle so that it doesn't get hot when you're using it. Your cheeses are going to store 2 to 5 years. unless you are a cheesemaker and you have the whole kit and caboodle and the fancy schmancy setup, and you know how much moisture down to the nth degree that your cheese is, you're not going to expect it to go 10 years. And very few cheese manufacturers age cheese that long anyway. They're just, their talents are just beyond phenomenal, the ones who can age cheese like that and get it just right. Very expensive cheese then. And I'm not sure that anybody would want a mild cheddar aged 10 years and still enjoy it anyway. Whereas Parmesan doesn't age that much in taste with 2 to 5 years of time. Same with the other hard cheeses that I've mentioned to you, because it doesn't have the moisture to age it like cheddar cheese would. So sorry, but you're only looking at 2 to 5 years. It's you know, it's not 10. I'm sorry. I saw again on this rabid post that people are like, it'll last 10 years. I'm like, yeah, if the mice don't get to it, if the mold doesn't get to it. Now, the other thing is, next rule is what kind of wax you use. You use cheese wax and only cheese wax. Now, cheese wax has some paraffin in it, but you do not want to use paraffin wax. Just because there's paraffin in it does not mean it's the same thing. There's a microcrystalline wax that's in the cheese wax, which makes the wax adhere better to the cheese and also makes it more pliable. You want it pliable, but you also want it breathable. That microcrystalline wax helps it to still breathe, because we all know what happens in an oxygen-free environment. You can still get botulism. So we don't want that. We still want it to be able to breathe. And that's why you don't want to stack them on top of each other. You'll end up with mold where they're touching if you stack the various cheese waxes on each other. Okay, what else do I need to tell you? Paraffin is much more brittle. It's less forgiving. It does not matter what color your cheese wax is. And there's a variety of colors out there. The only thing I would advise against is using the opaque, the white cheese wax. You could still use it. In fact, it's kind of a tan opaque that's on this cheese in the deli, but you're not going to get sunlight through it. I wax different cheeses in different colors. That's just my methodology. I'll wax when I have the variety that I want. That's what I'll do. I'll wax Parmesan in one color and Gouda in another color, et cetera, et cetera. But usually I just use the red cheese wax because I can still see through it to see if there's any mold developing. I can still prevent it from getting too much light, and that's important. You want cool, dark, humid environment. Okay, moving on. Food handling gloves are great to use. I know that cheese wax is hot, but your hands are not. And you could, especially when you're using the brush to fill in the gaps, you could get your hand anyway. And so the food handling gloves will provide you with a little bit more protection. But you don't want to introduce any germs. Now, I wash my hands thoroughly before I do cheese waxing anyway. And sometimes, because it's hard to grip with the food handling gloves, sometimes I'll do without them, but only if I've sanitized my hands and I know my cheese wax is hot enough to handle any additional germs that I might add in. So you may catch me sometimes without food handling gloves if the cheese wax is sliding off of the cheese. That happens sometimes with Gruyere for some reason. I don't know why it doesn't happen with Parmesan and Asiago, but so be it. Let's see. So after you dip it for 3 times, and remember, dip 6 seconds, hold for 90 seconds, dip 6 seconds, hold for 90 seconds. After you've done that, then you're going to want to look for the pinpricks, because they may fill in on those subsequent dips, which is fine. Let me look. I've got some other notes here that I wanted to share with you. You do not need to filter cheese wax after you melt it. Somebody was saying that, and I'm like, oh, golly gee willikers. No, you do not need to do that. With the cheese wax being that hot, that's going to help you to not transfer any bacteria or unnecessary moisture to your new cheese, which is important when you're putting it on your cheese, which is cooler. I actually find that when I put the cheese in the refrigerator for about 10 to 15 minutes before I wax it, for some reason the wax adheres better. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know why that is. Sorry. Okay, so I lied to you about how much cheese will be done with 1 pound. So 1 pound block of cheese wax is going to take care of 10 to 12 pounds, not 20. Sorry, I knew there was a 2 in there somewhere. Sometimes I remember things wrong. This is why I have notes so that I don't lead you astray. But you'll want that 5 pound block of cheese wax. You can get your cheese wax on Amazon, but I get it through the cheese making company. They've got precise directions there about waxing cheese as well. You'll want to make sure from the manufacturer. I had to call manufacturers to make sure that there wasn't too much paraffin in there. I want to make sure that there was microcrystalline wax in there, because some manufacturers are selling cheese wax, even though what it really is paraffin that's got a little bit of essential oils in it, and that's not what you want. So make sure it's bona fide cheese wax. That's why I like the cheesemaking company.com or the New England Cheesemaking Company. I think its website though is cheesemakingcompany.com. But they're great. And just so you know, once you get into this world of waxing cheeses, it's so easy to cross over the line and get into making your own cheeses. Now, making your own cheddar is awesome sauce. But for cheddar cheese and the recipes that I'll be making, the cheddar cheese it's got to be freeze dried. Or it's got to be what's left over in my fridge that didn't go bad. Now, cheese doesn't typically go bad in the refrigerator. It takes it a long time, even grated cheese. Cheese has got a nice long shelf life in your refrigerator. So as long as you keep it nice and cool in there, you can stock up on some cheeses. Some people actually store their waxed cheese in the refrigerator and get it to last longer, which that's great as long as it's about shelf life and maximizing your dollars that you're spending. Once you get the hang of the cheese waxing stuff, you're going to want to progress to making your own cheese from powdered milk, because in any flavor you decide, there's a whole other world of making your own cheese out there, and it's amazing, and it can be done in under an hour. It's a bit addictive, so keep that in mind. There's a lot of recipes in my cookbook that require cheese, like feta cheese. You can make feta cheese from powdered milk just like that. It's so easy. Ricotta cheese, mozzarella cheese, very, very good. And you can make it with non-fat powdered milk instead of full fat, although I do stock up on full fat powdered milk as well. Okay, I want to make sure I've answered. Oh, you don't need cheesecloth to wax cheese. I saw some people wrapping it in cheesecloth first. You don't need to do that. If you desire to use it prior to your wax labels, sometimes it's helpful getting the wax off, but I've really never had problems getting the wax off of my cheese. It comes off. It's nice and pliable. And guess what? You can reuse your cheese wax. I just rinse mine off a little bit, and then I put it back into my cheese wax bin. So basically what it looks like when you're waxing your cheese is you take your block of cheese, and I usually don't make them any bigger than this block because of how they fit into here. Let's see, I can't see that on the camera, so let me do. There we go. Okay, now I can see what I'm doing. So I will dip it as far in as I can, hold it for the 6 seconds, bring it out, and then I will turn it over and let it sit on the cheese mat until it cools. Once I'm done with that third layer, and then do another piece of cheese, another piece of cheese. You can actually see a little bit on this one. Can you see this this line here? So you can see where I was able to dip this way and this way, and then I had to turn it to be able to dip and get the rest of it. But you can actually see. But there's more than 3 layers on this one. So because some of it was being difficult for me for some reason. Now, one thing I do that I didn't do on this bundle of cheese is I cut the label off of the cheese when I buy it, and then I will stick it on my third layer of cheese, and then I will wax that cheese label on there so that I always know what it is, and then I just write the date on it. In this case, I got it out of a bin of a batch of Gruyere that I had done, so the label's on the bin instead of on the individual cheeses. So any questions? Good. I don't see any questions. No, you can't wax mozzarella cheese. And no, you cannot save the Baby Bell wraps and have those be considered cheese wax. It's not cheese wax. It's just wax. It's not, like I said, it's just marketing. It's not something that you want to rely on your life with. So how about them apples? Okay, so that covers it for me today. Hopefully, when you see that bogus post, you will be able to repost this video and say, let's do this the right way. All right, take care, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.